Okay, welcome back. This is ProTail Dev. This time we're going to be working on island prefabs. We're going to get rid of the tile map altogether and we're just going to create some prefabs. I'm going to very briefly show accessing scripts and functions from other scripts. This is only very briefly. Then I'm going to be showing skill upgrades, a bit of design. I'm going to be playing around with the UI, trying to make something nice. And we're going to be doing a little bit of coding for buying a skill. An upgrade, very basic, but it'll begin the process of making a skill tree later on. So let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our island prefabs. So we're no longer going to be using tile maps, and we're actually just going to create them straight up. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the sprites themselves and I'm just going to piece them together as if they're a puzzle using the snap to grid. This allows me to have a little bit more freedom, so I'm just going to skip ahead. As you can see, I've created a little island here and I'm just putting all the pieces together, snapping them together. There are different ways of doing this, so you could always have a professional artist do this and they can do the islands in a different program, or you could always do it using things like sprite shapes, or you could just use tile maps. It's fine. Now I'm going to add a few decorations, a few rocks and stuff, and see how it is, and then add a Polygon Collider, which allows me to shape my own collider for this 2D island. Once that's completed, I then obviously change the tag for this island. I tested it out so that I've still got that speed drop whenever I go into it, to simulate as if I'm actually going on an island. So it's all working, and then I repeat the process for a bunch more islands, and then create a items spawn and put all the spawns into there. So do a little bit of organizing. Again, I'm going to be getting rid of the tile map stuff, so I'm not going to be having items spawn on that instead. So I've got all my islands now. I do a little bit of reorganizing with some files for the rocks and stuff and put them in there. Once that's done, I then look at the item spawn, and I want to create a prefab of the spawn point so I can use it whenever I want. And specifically I want to be able to use it for our islands, so that we can randomly spawn islands around the map and we can sort of control that. I think it's a lot more freeing than having tile maps and just spawning random tile maps everywhere. So I'm just putting all the islands in, same as array, just like how we did with the items. And once that's completed, I'll dot them around. Right now there's a tile map, I'm just going to get rid of it. I'll add a temporary tile map in later, just for the water, because I plan on doing something different with the water. So as you can see, I'm deleting some of it, getting rid of those. So I've only got a grid left. I'm going to leave the grid just in case I ever want to make more islands and make more prefabs of them, which I probably will, but probably in my own time. Once that's done, I'll get a bit of water, and like I said, this is only going to be temporary, just to add to the environment a little bit. Then I'll go to the items and sort out the ordering, make sure they're all above the water and the island. And make sure everything still works, as it does. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the UI of our skills and the very beginning of our skill tree. So I'll do a lot of playing around in this and seeing what works and what doesn't and how it looks. I change the design of the button quite a lot because I'm still not sure how I want it. So I'm just renaming at the moment. I'm just going to set food upgrade, and these are all very much temporary, just for testing. but I do like to make sure that I know what I'm doing and what I'm clicking on, so I'll rename things accordingly. So there we go, 2 little upgrades. I will just end up using 1 just for testing, but I just want to see what it looks like side by side with the frames. So I'll open the player score script, and I want to set up a function for buying these grass. So I want to be able to actually minus the score of our resource, the seagrass, whenever I call this function. So that should take away 1 seagrass. Now I'll create a new script, and I'm just going to call it skill tree. It's going to hold all of the interactions with the UI directly with the code for taking away scores. So I'll set up a public button so I can get the food and I'll get the speed. Once that's done, I want to set up a public for a player's score. So I want to get a reference, and I want to be able to access the function from that score. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm getting a reference to it, so that I can always access the functions and variables now whenever I need to. So I could always just take away the score from here if I wanted to. But I've already created the function into the player score, so I'm quickly remembering because I forgot what I called it. So spend grass. So now at the moment I've got it so that when the game starts it'll minus a grass, which we don't want, so I'll move that in a bit. So there we go. I'm just checking, so right now I've put it as if it's equal to 4, set the button to false, well otherwise set it to true. And I'm just testing to make sure that it works, that's why I put it like that. That actually won't be what we want. So I put the skill tree onto a game manager, and then I put the game object into there, into our onClick, and so that I can find the function. Once I find the function and set it up, I know now that when the button clicks, it'll call that function specifically. Then I quickly set up a food upgrade, which is what's going to be calling on the onClick. So it's going to be calling this function that's directly connected to the other function. And I've just set up another one which is spend squid, just for a different resource for the other upgrade. There we go, I've set them all now to the correct function. And I add just like I've done with that button, but instead of taking away seagrass, I add, and that's what the add points is. So I'll quickly set that up, just to see what the, just so I can quickly get some points, just for testing. Yep, so it works. Whenever I click the upgrade, it takes it away. Whenever I click add points, it adds to it. So I spend a little bit of time looking at UI, kind of just playing around with what it might look like. I added a little bit of a lock icon, so I quickly created an icon in a different program. Created a few other icons just for this. Then added the image, set the image in the script, so I can turn it off and on whenever I reach a certain point of seagrass. And I play around a little bit with the locks and where I want it, because again I've not done this before. I've not done a skill tree before, so this is all from scratch. This is something I've not done, and so I do a lot of playing around in between that I've had to actually cut out because I spend a lot of time playing around. I'm just looking at design and how I feel like this is going to actually work with this skill and upgrades. So once I've done that, I put the image in the button, but I do decide that I do want to change it like a little bit later on. So I'm looking at highlights, looking at icons. So I'll just test it out, make sure it's all working first. So when I buy it, it does highlight as well, it's all working. And then I decide I want the button on the image instead, because the image is going to be the icon. It doesn't make sense for the button to be accessible while the icon may not be there. It doesn't quite make sense. I'd rather have it so that the button is only available when the icon is always there, and if it's not, then the icon shouldn't be there, with the button shouldn't be there either. So as you can see, it works. When I highlight over it, it works. When I click it, we run out of resources, and it goes back to being locked, which isn't ideal, what we want right now, but we'll work on showing off that we've unlocked it a little bit later. So I'm playing around with a lot of things, but it's the very, very basics of a skill now. We can essentially buy it, it takes away resources, and then we could always just leave it there if we really wanted it to be very simple. And then just have it so that there's another function that actually does something. Let's say it spawns an item. Essentially the skill is complete, but it's just not very advanced. So I do add the button in here so that I can actually enable it and disable it. Although this, right now what I'm putting in here doesn't actually do anything. It's not actually doing anything whatsoever, because right now I'm setting the image active or not whenever it's want it to be available, so it's not actually doing anything at the moment, but I'll be using that later on. So as you can see, once I've got enough items, it has the seagrass. When I buy it, it no longer becomes available. So that's the very basics of our skill and upgrade. Next time we come back, I'll be working on the skill tree, but you'll see a lot more of me working on more details on that specific button and specifically on the upgrade of an individual skill, but in the context of a skill tree. So I look forward to that. See you next time.